guys, today I'm going to be answering your makeup questions and hopefully solving some of your beauty problems and show you how to get a super flawless long wearing makeup application, because that's what a lot of the kind of questions boiled down to was, you know, how do I make my makeup last the longest? How do I do color correcting, bronzing, and all that good stuff? So that's kind of what we're going to get into today. I'm really excited that this video is sponsored by and in partnership with Hudson's Bay. I announced our partnership a little while back on Instagram, and that was when I put out the call and said, hey, what overwhelms you in the beauty world? Let's try to, you know, solve some of those problems and pick through a little bit of the clutter, because it can get a little bit overwhelming at times, all the information that's out there. And what's great about Hudson's Bay is they have beauty experts who are experts in their particular brands and will also be able to help you out and answer any questions you have that I may not get to today. Of course, everything that I'm mentioning today is available at Hudson's Bay and will be linked down below. And the beauty experts there sent some of these products along because they just fit perfectly with some of the questions that you had, so I'll be showing those as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first step of this routine is going to be priming, and priming is one of those things I think that is one of the most confusing in the beauty world. It is for me anyways, and I know I get a lot of questions from you about it as well, and I know we've chatted about it a lot recently, especially in probably the past year. And I wasn't always sure about priming for my skin, but I've definitely come around to it and see the benefits of it, but it's really a matter of finding the right primer for your skin. So today I'm going to be using the Nars Pore and Shine Control Primer. This is a really nice one if you have a more oily or combination skin type. They do have a few others as well in the line depending on what you're looking for, but what I like about this is that it has mattifying properties, but it doesn't feel really heavy and like a thick layer on my skin. But I do recommend with just about any primer that you do kind of pat it into your skin as opposed to rubbing it all over. In addition to that, if you're not completely oily all over your face, you may not need to prime your entire face. So I kind of patted it in my T-zone, which is definitely my trouble area, and then moving outwards to the sides of my face, because the center of my face is definitely what gets the most oily, and this helps to kind of keep the oils at bay and keep me looking matte for a little bit longer. For my next step, I'm going to do a little bit of powdering, and yes, I'm going to powder before my foundation. I've gotten questions about this before, and it's something I've been playing around with for about the past year probably, trying to figure out when it works, when it doesn't work, what's the best way to do it, and I definitely like using a loose powder. I haven't really played around much with pressed powders. I like a loose mattifying powder. So today I'm going to be using the Diorskin Forever and Ever Control Powder. This is a super lightweight, finely milled powder, because when you're trying to create a long wearing base, even if you're trying to go full coverage, you don't want that cakey look, and it can get cakey at times. So that's why I like to use a damp beauty sponge. Today I'm using one from Liz Wattier, which is one that I've talked about a good bit, and I really do enjoy it. It's super soft. What this kind of does is adds an extra layer of matteness. I think it absolutely helps with the wear time of my foundation. If you don't have a super oily skin type, I don't know that you'd necessarily need to do it. And again, it's not something that I do on the everyday, but when I'm like, I want this to super last and I don't want to have to think about it, it's a great option. I think a lot of people's first instinct when it comes to covering acne marks or active acne or blemishes, rosacea, whatever it may be, is to go in with a super matte and super full coverage foundation. And there's absolutely a time and a place for it. I absolutely love it. But more recently, I have been dealing with a lot of cystic acne. It's for the most part cleared up now, but I definitely still have acne marks, I have redness, and I do have some active acne. So it's really about finding that balance, and I've really been loving a more natural coverage and finish foundation, and I've been leaning a little bit more on color correcting and spot concealing, because that will help to target the areas that need the help but leave the more clear areas alone, therefore making your overall look a little bit more natural. So for my spot concealing today, I'm using the Nars Soft Matte Complete Concealer. This one is in the shade Ginger, and I'm just using the tiniest amount, especially if you're going in to powder your skin before. Just use a really small amount. The goal here is to cover the spots but leave the rest of your skin looking more light, and that way your overall look doesn't look too cakey. For foundation today, I'm also reaching for Nars. It is the Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. I have reviewed this. I absolutely love it. And a year ago, I would have never even reached for a foundation that said radiant, but it's also long wearing. And it kind of depends, right? Like radiant doesn't necessarily mean greasy and shiny, radiant can look very, very natural, which is exactly what this foundation looks like. It's also super buildable, and seeing it there on the back of my hand, I am barely using any foundation because I am doing the spot concealing, I'm doing the color correcting, and I'm going to be going in with a powder foundation. So if I was to go full on all of those fronts, it would be full on cake face, and it actually would probably have less lasting power because there's just so much on my face that it would be moving and slipping around, because I know I have made that mistake many a time. So I'm only going in with the tiniest amount, and again, focusing it more on the areas that are trouble for me, which are the bottoms of my cheeks. Places like my nose, my forehead, my chin, I just basically put the residual of what is on my brush there. I don't really target it at all. I'll just put a little bit there. Sometimes I'll put a couple dots, but again, it's all about building in really, really, really light layers. So concealing the under eyes can be really tricky because I know that I like to go lighter on my concealer under the eyes to add brightness, but if you're dealing with any darkness under the eyes, if you do go bright with your concealer, it can actually tend to look gray under the eyes, and then you end up kind of working backwards, and not only are you not brightening, but you're almost adding darkness under the eyes. So if you do have darkness under the eyes, blueness, sallowness, especially on your inner corner, I definitely recommend color correcting, because you can pile up as much concealer as you want, but if it's not the right shade, it's not actually going to cancel out that darkness. So today I'm using the LANCôME Teint Idole Ultra Wear Camouflage Color Corrector. This one is in the shade Peach, and it is so, so important, like any product, but especially with color correctors, to get the right shade. You see a lot of people using a lot of very intense colors, and that may work for them, but keep in mind, in everyday practice, that may not be the best, especially if you have a more fair skin tone. Only put it where you need, especially with color correcting. Go to town on spot concealing if you want to, but with color correcting, only correct the places you need, because you don't want to then add too much foundation on top of it or concealer to then have to correct the orangeness. You're like, okay, I got rid of the darkness under my eyes, but now I'm completely orange. For my under eyes, I'm using an old favorite. This is my second one of these, and I don't run through concealers very easily, so the fact that I have repurchased this concealer, that's a pretty big deal. It's the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer, and this is just absolutely beautiful. I recommend this for any skin type. I have oily, I know people who have drier skin love it as well. I like to do kind of a triangle under my eyes. It adds a little bit of brightness, adds a little bit of lift to the face, and then I like to let it sit on my skin for about a minute or two. You can do your brows or whatever it may be, and that way it just adds a little bit more coverage. And I like to, for the most part, use my fingers under my eyes. Something about it just blends really nicely for me, and it doesn't remove the coverage. It's no secret that highlighting is all the rage and has been for some time now, but it can still be a little bit intimidating because some highlighters are super intense. If you have any amount of texture on your skin, I know when I was dealing with a lot of texture on my skin, I still wanted to wear highlighter, but I didn't want to necessarily enhance all of the bumps on my skin. So I have gained an appreciation for cream highlighters that I never had before, just cream products in general actually. But I know I have had questions about the RMS brand, and this is their Magic Luminizer. I have seen this raved about. I wasn't totally sure how this was going to look on my skin tone, and I was blown away by how beautiful this was. And I think it's actually going to last a really long time because you need the smallest amount. You can use a brush with this. I like to use my fingers. As for placement, I've been adding a little bit more highlighter kind of on the tops of my cheeks than normal. If you have a lot of issues with pores, you may not want to go in too far because you will highlight your pores, but it just adds this nice cute like freshness and glow when you smile. You have the tops of your cheeks glowing. Blending that out with my fingers. I know that a lot of you have said that you appreciate that I use my fingers a lot for eyeshadow and for makeup, because you do too. And it's not even that, like, I just like the application. Like I could reach for brushes. I have the brushes and I do sometimes, but with cream products, especially highlighters and concealers, for me, I find I get the most beautiful application that way. So if you've yet to try that, I encourage you to do it. When it comes to setting my face, I like to use a lighter powder under my eyes and then a skin tone powder on my face. Again, another great way to build coverage is with powder foundation, but I do set my under eyes first, just kind of out of habit, I think, because I like to keep that area nice and bright. So I'm using the Bobbi Brown Retouching Loose Powder. And although I have oily skin, I don't like to go for anything too matte or heavy under the eyes. I know I've said heavy 3,000 times. My apologies, but this is like the lightest powder. It is so airy. So under the eyes, it has that yellow, so it adds a little bit of brightness. It comes in several different shades, and you could use this to set your face as well, I think, but I do really love it under the eyes because it is so light and it doesn't add any of that kind of dryness, because like I said, even though I do have oily skin, my like under eyes aren't oily, so I don't like to add anything too mattifying there. And then to add a little bit of more coverage to my skin and to definitely help keep me matte, an old favorite, I've used this for years. This is probably my 4th or 5th one. This is the M.A.C Studio Fix Powder Foundation. This is a great powder foundation on its own, but used more lightly, I love it to set my face because it adds a little bit more coverage without caking things up, and it adds those great mattifying properties. Now keep in mind, these are a lot of steps here today, and I told you I was gonna help you not feel overwhelmed in the beauty world, and now I'm showing you a bunch of steps. So please do not feel overwhelmed. I'm showing you and kind of answering all of your questions and showing you them all at once. You do not need to use all of these at once necessarily. Pick from what you need and what applies to your skin type, your needs, your makeup collection, or whatever it may be. So just keep that in mind as we're going along, because I don't want you to feel like, wow, I need to do all of this, but this is steps you can take, be it all of them or some of them, for a more flawless, long-wearing makeup application. Moving on to bronzing, which as I've mentioned before has become probably my favorite part of my makeup routine, primarily bronzing like this part of my face. I don't know, there's just something about like, ooh, the look is coming together when I do that. But today I'm going to be using the GUERLAIN Terracotta Light Bronzer. This one is in the shade Deep Cool 05, and I'm just showing kind of a small selection of the beauty brands that are available at Hudson's Bay. They also have brands like Pie, French Girl, which I was there like 2 weeks ago and saw the French Girl packaging, and it was so beautiful. As I mentioned, I will link to everything and to their website down below. But for me, I like to bronze on the perimeter of my face primarily. So like I said, I bring it up on my forehead, down onto my cheeks, and around my jawline. I'll also take it just slightly onto my nose, because technically bronzing and contouring, or not technically, they are different things. They're made for different purposes, but for me and for my face shape, I do kind of put them in the same place, just in different methods. So bronzing is a little bit of a bigger, fluffier, perhaps angled brush, and it's a little bit more all over the face, while with contour, it's going to be a little bit of a deeper powder. It's going to be a little bit more cool toned, perhaps, to add that depth to the face, and I'm going to be doing it in a more concentrated way, and definitely more light-handed than I would with bronzer as well. Bronzing is more about warming up the skin. I do find it adds definition, even though, you know, there's a little debate as to like which one is supposed to do which, but for me, definitely it takes the flatness away from my face that I had kind of put there by adding foundation. So to contour, I am using the Nars Melina powder on the Ita brush. So I kind of just stamp it on to the underside of where my cheekbones are. Then I do bring it up in the same area that I bronzed, but more close to my hairline, and I'm not diffusing it all over my face because that would just look super dirty and muddy. And then with the remainder of what I have on my brush, I kind of stamp it on the sides of my nose and under my lips. Sometimes I don't do nose, but I figured I would show that today. You could also use like a fluffy eyeshadow brush for the sides of the nose as well if you wanted to go that route, because I find that's where contour can go the most wrong. Once you're done bronzing and contouring, even blush and highlight, and kind of run it all over your face just to blend things together better so you don't have any stark lines on your face. Although we have already done some cream highlighting, and in actuality I probably could have just left this on its own, I was pleasantly surprised by how much glow I still had from the RMS highlighter, even though I had powdered my skin. But I mean, let's just do it. I'm gonna go in with the Estee Lauder Bronze Goddess Illuminating Powder Gelee. This is so beautiful. If you're a fan of the types and colors of highlighters that I like, you will absolutely love this one. And I basically hit all the same places that I did with the RMS one. Having the RMS with the Estee Lauder layered above it will help it be more long wearing as well. You may have noticed that I applied bronzer, contour, then highlighter. Now I'm going in with blush. This is something that I do sometimes, and I'm trying to do more, trying to break my habit, but I feel like when you do it in this order, you get a little bit more of a seamless blend than going, what I normally do would be bronze, contour, then blush, then highlight and kind of layer. But I feel like then when I go and put my blush on in between and in kind of the other way, this way it all kind of blends together a little bit better. So I'm using the Giorgio Armani Cheek Fabric Sheer Blush, and for me, with my face shape, it's a little bit more on the round round side, not as defined as I would like it to be. So I generally put my blushes towards the back of my cheeks and move forward. I don't focus a ton on the apples of my cheeks right here on the front because that can make your face look a little bit more round and youthful, I guess. But I really, really like this blush because it adds a little bit of sheen to the skin. It looks incredibly natural because it's not a super, super pigmented blush, but it is really, really buildable, and it has a really nice kind of peachy glow. So if you are kind of looking to move quick and didn't even want to use highlighter, I think you could get away with just using this type of blush because it adds that little bit of flush and color to the skin, but you're also getting a little bit of glow, but no glitter at all. I've heard so many people saying great things about LANCôME mascaras. Today I'm going to be using the Monsieur Big. This definitely, I get a lot of beautiful lift and a lot of kind of separation, but at the same time you're getting volume. So I'm really, really impressed. This was like hyped up for a very good reason. And lastly, I want to mention the lipstick that I'm wearing. I don't really have a tip for this besides the fact that I love MAC lipstick. I bought this years and years ago, but this is the MAC Flat Out Fabulous. It's one of those shades that I think would just be so flattering on anybody. It's kind of like a medium pink and has a lot of brightness in it, and it is really, really long wearing. I don't find you need a lip liner with it. I'm so glad to be breaking it out because I forgot how much I loved it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful and I answered some of your questions. If any questions remain, be sure to check with the beauty experts at Hudson's Bay. And as I mentioned, all of these products are available online at Hudson's Bay along with in-store. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!